Guilt is an unproductive emotion. When I think of the hours that I spent as a young Latter-day Saint, I have cassette recordings that I made when I was a teenager lying there in bed, telling myself how awful I felt about myself. I hated myself by the time I was 12 years old. That was to a very significant extent the result of Mormon psychological indoctrination. Maybe you can relate in your own life, in your own experience, guilt, this useless, unproductive emotion of guilt. It accomplishes nothing. It wastes time and energy. Why? Because no one was ever made good by being told that they were bad. We change for the better when we want to change. We change for the better when that spark at the core of us says enough is enough of our current situation, of our status quo. We must change, and so we do. Self-acceptance involves letting go of negative judgments of ourselves, our thoughts and behavior, the things that we have not done or achieved so far in life, how many years we spent in Mormonism, that's the point I raised before. Accepting, this is right out of 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Dr. Brandon. Accepting compassionate interest does not encourage undesired behavior, rather it reduces the likelihood of it reoccurring. Okay, stop it. Self-responsibility. Perceiving oneself as a victim is a psychological to becoming more empowered. That is one of the huge challenges for mental health professionals when they're dealing with victims of abuse, because the programming that's gone into their psyche over a period of time, and that might be from early childhood, has been one of victimization. That's been their experience. And so quite logically they conclude that I'm a victim. But being a victim doesn't work in this world. We have to be empowered. There is that force at the core of us that is pushing us to become more powerful. And you might consider it a spiritual force or an evolutionary force, but it's there. It's there. And so making this transition from perceiving oneself as a victim to becoming more empowered, for a lot of people with experience in the LDS Church, that is a major part of their healing process. Taking responsibility for our happiness is empowering. No one owes us the fulfillment of our wishes. Not our spouse, not our parents, not our kids or our employer. If there is an aspect of our personal lives that isn't as we would like it to be, we're not making enough money, we were passed over for a promotion, there's a lot of conflict in our personal relationship, then the ultimate responsibility to initiate a change lies with us. Each of us is responsible for the achievement of our desires, our choices and actions, our behavior. I talked with a guy last night at the back table there. He's a defender in the Utah judicial system, and he works with people who have committed serious crimes. And he said, almost universally, there is this incredibly deeply entrenched denial. They just psychologically cannot get to the place where they fully will confess to themselves, I did this, and my actions hurt that person or these people in those ways. And my own opinion about the judicial system is those type of people should never be let out of prison until they reach that point. And that applies as much to the kid who takes a candy bar as to a serial murderer. So that's I got off on a little tangent there. Because why let them back out on the street if there's this core underlying denial that's not going to psychologically get them in a place where they're going to take responsibility for their behavior? It doesn't make any sense to me. Self-responsibility involves the level of awareness that we bring to our relationships and work, how we prioritize our time. How many people felt stressed out in terms of always having to, always feeling the need, really the anxious need to be busy as a Latter-day Saint? You know, just that mental lash all the time, scurrying from one end of the meeting house to the other, to the library to get here, you know, and then there's the meeting afterwards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just like, when I think back on that, it's just, one of my assignments when I was flying aerial surveys, we got a contract paid for by the Canadian government to spend 2 winters in the Caribbean. Just flying around taking vertical photography of the islands. I had a lot of spare time. And if I wasn't flying, I was eating and just sitting by the pool and reading. Because there was no local LDS branch on the island, you know, so I couldn't attend, and yet coming up against that psychological shove and pressure to be busy. You must be busy, you must be busy. And I have to tell you this story. The last church meeting that I was ever in was the Saturday state conference session. So visiting, I think it was the 70th, and there's the Saturday evening session, right? And the big session the following day. And I got in my car, drove to the Surrey Stake Center, arrived late, about 10 minutes late. The center section was open. The front, of course, the pews were filled, and chairs were open at the back. So I came in late, and walking across the gym floor, of course, in my shoes, so there's like, and people are turning around and looking and giving me the judgmental look of, you know, if you were a truly faithful saint, you would have been here at least 10 minutes ago and in your seat. Anyway, sat down, and they had finished with the announcements, the opening hymn and the prayer, and they were sort of into the introduction of this 70. And just as he started to get up from his seat and approach the podium, the thought, literally, it was like words came into my mind, "You don't need to be here anymore." And I got up. I had only been in my seat, you know, maybe well about 2 or 3 minutes, and I got up and I left. And of course, the looks, you know, even more piercing, right? How can you possibly? This is a general authority who's about to speak to you. And went out into the parking lot and sat in my car. And just this anxiety was just welling up inside me. And I asked myself, what do I do now? And the thought came into my mind, it doesn't matter. And it's like, what? And so I started up my engine, and the car engine, and it's like, well, where should I drive to now? You know, I'm here at the Stake Center. I'm supposed to be here. Where do I go now? And the thought came into my mind, it doesn't matter. And so I pulled out of the parking lot and just drove in that direction for I don't know, a few kilometers, and then I decided to turn right for another few kilometers. And the whole I was confronting this psychological result of the years of this LDS conditioning, that I had to be busy and I had to be in a certain place at a certain time, and it just didn't matter. Not on that evening, and I have spent a lot of time in the last 14 years just not really doing a whole lot in my spare time, other than things that I've wanted to do.